Hi, I'm Chuck, and welcome back to 2MMRC. It's been a minute, but I've been doing stuff, and now that I have time to record, I'm taking advantage of it. In the last couple months, I've traveled to Kamloops for a race, traveled to the US for a race, and helped organize and operate a relatively big race in Vancouver as well. What else? Oh yeah, I was on a podcast or a video cast on YouTube with a few guys that was a couple weeks ago. That was really fun. Looking forward to being invited back. There I talked about destroying transponders that you don't use rather than selling them, just because they create a lot of confusion when you start shifting transponders around to different people. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about having fun at races. A lot of people say you gotta go and have fun, but how do you do that? Some people define fun or enjoyment, which is a better term, differently, and they achieve that enjoyment in different ways. There's a couple of fundamentals, though, that if you do those fundamentals, no matter what your goal for the enjoyment is, you will achieve that level of enjoyment. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I actually exercising my cursive writing, which became horribly worse when I started working in the pharmaceutical industry. So 5 things for an enjoyable race day. Let's jump into the first point, which is to get, there we go, focused. Get some rest. That's something a lot of people seem to forget. They show up 2 hours of rest, or they've been drinking the night before, or doing who knows what, basically not mentally or physically prepared to spend 8 to 10 hours in the same facility, cooped up, racing RC cars. That's a big thing. You have to be actually recharged and prepared to do this. It's more than just a race. It's also a marathon on your mind and your body. So get some rest. That's really important. Can't stress that enough. Number 2, similar lines, eat something. Make sure to eat. A lot of us, the reality is, a lot of us who do these club races are typically over 30. A lot of us are typically over 40. When you get to that age, you need to have food. You do not want to operate while you're hangry. I'm sure a lot of us have operated while hangry, and the results have not been enjoyable. Not for us, and not for the people around us. So, eat something. Always have a good breakfast. Be prepared to buy a lunch, or chip in when someone orders lunch in, like pizza or Chinese food or whatever they fancy on Uber Eats. Always have a cup of water or a bottle of coffee. Well, a cup of coffee or a bottle of water handy, so that you can constantly stay hydrated and have something. Otherwise, it doesn't turn into a pretty situation when someone flips out because they're hangry, and they're flipping out because they didn't enjoy playing with toy cars. Think about that and how stupid it sounds. But it happens. So make sure, eat. Third thing, and we see this often, and it's done under the disguise of tuning, but arrive with working cars. A lot of people show up and tune. A lot of people show up with cars that aren't even operational. There is a difference. between a car that needs a tune or a slight tune and a car that doesn't even have its wheels on, and is completely unprepared to go on the track. Showing up, these guys are typically frantic about getting stuff. Maybe they have to borrow tools because they don't have the right tool for the right application. It's hard to help a person who hasn't helped themselves. But yes, please arrive with working cars. It's one thing if you're gonna, change up your tune, which I'll talk about later, because there's a couple things I did change up with my Tamiya car and also with my touring car. But yeah, arriving with working cars is important, because if your cars don't work, then you're not gonna be able to race. Whether it's a car, whether it's a buggy, whether it's a nitro, make sure it's running before you get to the track. Otherwise, you're just playing catch up, and that's not a good position to be in. Fourth one, don't be afraid to talk to people. This is a weird one because a lot of people at RC races seem to be introverted, and that's okay. But we are in a social gathering. It's 50 dudes, 60 dudes, 100 dudes, all doing something that they enjoy. So why not enjoy it together with other people that are doing the exact same thing? I get it. Some people aren't talkative, but at least be respectful enough to listen, or, be patient enough to listen at the very least. It is a social environment. That's what you signed up for when you decided to race in an event that had 100 people. So it really makes no sense for you to, close yourself off. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy it with others who also enjoy the same thing. Talk to people. Or at least be respectful of others who are talking. And 5, taking ownership. This is a big one. Too often at a race, you hear someone say, I would have podiumed if the marshal picked me up after I crashed. So think about that. I would have podiumed, or I would have won if a marshal had fixed my car after I crashed. There's a couple of flaws in that statement. Yes, I would have won if I did not crash. That's taking ownership. Yeah, I crashed. I would have won if my transponder didn't malfunction. My transponder did malfunction. Hey, it happened. 85 other guys had transponders that worked. My transponder didn't. You know what? It's probably something with my transponder or with the setup that I have on my vehicle. Maybe the transponder's too far away. Maybe there's something blocking it. Who knows? Maybe somebody put a curse on me. It's on me. That's what ownership is all about. So that's an important one. A lot of people tend to forget that, and they blame others. You know what? It's part of the game. I get it. Nobody wants to take ownership for something silly like, something like crashing. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault that I didn't get marshaled. Oh, it's your fault that my equipment is faulty. No. I crashed. No. My equipment is faulty. No. I didn't get enough rest the night before. No. I didn't eat enough, or I ate too much and fell asleep during a race. Take ownership. You'll enjoy things a lot more when you do. So, those are 5 things. I think I have one more. Yeah, a bonus one. The bonus point here to enjoy a club race or an RC event is to believe in yourself. Don't walk into a race with so much doubt that you've effectively prevented yourself from accomplishing anything. Go in there thinking, you know what, I'm going to do the best I can. Don't go overzealous and be, thinking that you're going to become a grand champion, but believe in your capabilities. Know that, yes, I did tighten all the wheels on my car. I am going to finish this race. Yes, I charged my battery. I am going to give the best that I can because I've got the best voltage and the best setup that I currently have available to me. Believe in yourself. You'll achieve a lot of good things when you do. So now, talking about my car. Changed up my body and my paint job. This is so much easier to do. I've done a couple of real videos already. Using paint pens. Super awesome, super easy. I don't even have to do a lot of masking anymore for the windows. Even if I'm off, it's okay because the paint pen is essentially covered a lot of that. This setup here, I took out the SkyRC TS50. Was having some issues with it, so luckily one of my buddies had an old Hobby Wing, and I used that because I know how it works. It's not the best, but it's consistent and reliable, so that's really what I'm looking for right now. So that's why it's not all nicely fancy wired, because I just threw it in. I needed something that worked. Not a whole lot has changed. I finished fourth in the A main of the recent local trophy race. The big thing that I had to alter last minute at the track was the rear diff. When I rebuilt the rear diff, it was too stiff, too much putty. So I ended up having to hold one of the wheels and gunning the accelerator to basically soften and make that putty fly out to the outer edges. That helped a lot. One thing I forgot to, take into account was the belted tires. With non-belted tires, these things balloon and essentially gear up the car. I know that. I'll take ownership on the fact that I forgot about that. So instead of using old ballooned US GT tires, I used new ones that were belted, which made my car handle great, but I was noticeably slower in areas where people were essentially out horsepowering me. And that's a weird thing because everyone was using the same motor and the same car. But otherwise, it was a well set up vehicle, very consistent. And again, I'll take ownership on the fact that, despite my very consistent and smooth driving, I got beat fair and square because I forgot to take into account that ballooned US GT non-belted tires essentially allow your car to gear up in the middle of driving, which is very cool if you know about it, and if you don't, now you do. With these type of races, you have to pass tech. So in the Tamiya TCS and also at the March Madness in Vancouver, cars were teched, and that is a sign of a teched car because they've checked the gearbox for the actual gear ratios inside. So if you can see that, they put some yellow paint on there. Boom. Otherwise, car remains relatively the same to the original tune. Okay, on to the next one. This car is a fun car that I've spent a lot of time on recently. My XQ11. XQ11 car here with a new paint job that I'm really liking as well. It is reminiscent of my old paint job, but it's got a bit of a newer, styling to it. It's been mentioned that my original paint job it's classic. And it's classic because it's the same paint job that I did for about the last 20 years. So I took that as a bit of a constructive insult and decided to change things up. Now I got a paint scheme that is actually faster to use and looks a bit more modern. Now, in terms of the car, something I noticed, especially when I was at Kamloops, I didn't have enough front steering. I didn't have the initial steering that I wanted, so I essentially had to overdrive the car to make it do what I wanted it to do. So, while I was up there and talking to one of the racers that was local, but also went up to that race that you mentioned. One of the easiest ways to get more initial is to stand up your shocks, and that's what I did at the front. In the back, I have 0 shims. On the shocks on the front, I went from 1 shim to 2. That 1mm allowed my shocks to stand up a little more, and that allowed me to have a bit more initial steering, because the shocks were essentially not doing as much work, I think, so that meant that they weren't absorbing that kinetic energy. The kinetic energy simply transferred directly. That was cool. That worked. I still wanted more though. So just this past weekend, it was recommended that because of this design, one of the other racers, Chris, so thank you to Tiny and Chris for those recommendations, just said, hey, why don't you just do something really simple on this car, which is to add a shim at the front here. That's going to change your caster. On old cars, caster blocks were typically fixed. On these new style of cars, you can change the caster very easily with a couple of shims. In the past, if I wanted to go from 4 degrees to 2 degrees of caster, I essentially had to jack the car forward. So I'd had to put a shim on the back front toe block, jack it up in order to get that caster. On this type of vehicle with this type of more modern suspension, the caster simply changed by adding a shim there. So I went from 4 degrees to 2 degrees by adding an extra shim inside the at the front of the bulkhead and essentially moving it forward. That allowed me to have a lot more initial steering as well, along with the suggestion from Tiny, which was to stand up my shocks a little bit more, and that allowed my lap times to change from a consistent 12.4 to a consistent 12.1. So that was really, really noticeable to go from 12.4 to 12.1. Still not the fastest times out there, but it was an improvement over what I had been doing before. So again, taking ownership from that, I'm very happy because I personally improved, and that's really what it's all about. What else? Oh yeah, I took off the silver dollar. It just I didn't want to lose this if I got knocked or hit, because I kind of don't feel like losing $30 in a qualifier. So I ended up changing it up. One of my buddies is a 3D printer, so he printed me this custom weight, which, yeah, no comment. And I also put a 10-cent dime on the other side to balance things out. So now I'm at weight with this car, which, other than what I mentioned, is still the same type of setup. I still like the that really dynamic steering in the, or sorry, not that dynamic rear end, where under compression, the rear toe changes. I really like that. That's something I'll probably continue doing because I enjoy that. Oh yeah, I also upgraded my motor. Upgrade. Sure, it's an upgrade. I changed my motor from the Phantom, and I recently put in the new Orca Blitrim 3. Very cool because it runs very different. Rather than going 4.4 at 55 degrees, I'm now at 3.6 at well, it shows at about 45 on the can, but on my analyzer it was 39 degrees. So that's where I'm at with this motor. It's a very different type of gearing than my Phantom, not the Icon, my Phantom Helix motor. But I'm liking it so far. Anyways, yeah, just giving you an update on my cars. Nothing too drastically different from what I've originally been doing. But my main thing was I wanted to talk about those 5 points, well, 6 with the bonus. Thanks very much, guys. Have a wonderful day.